It was a blistering hot day, the kind where the sun seemed to scorch everything in its path. Dust swirled in the streets, clinging to the backs of tired, weary souls who trudged along, their faces haggard with hardship. The town square was bustling with people, but none stood out more than an old man leaning heavily on his cane. His skin was leathery, marked by age, and his clothes, once fine, were now faded and frayed. His eyes, though clouded by years, still held a sharpness that missed nothing. He had seen too many hard days to count, but today was different. His eyes scanned the crowd, his fingers twitching around the $5 bill clutched tightly in his hand. A brief pause, and then he approached the wooden platform where the auction was taking place. A small, shackled figure stood on the platform, her head lowered in shame, her body trembling with the weight of her captivity. The crowd murmured as they sized her up. This girl, no more than 14, was being sold like livestock. Her clothes were torn, her skin bruised, a stark contrast to the innocence that still lingered in her eyes despite everything. Her name was Amina, and she had been bought and sold more times than she could remember. As the auctioneer's voice rang out, the bids came fast and sharp, each one higher than the last. But the old man didn't wait for the bidding to climb any higher. He raised his hand slowly, his voice calm but firm. "I'll take her for $5. The crowd fell silent. The auctioneer, taken aback, glanced at him, his eyes narrowing. $5. You realize she's worth more than that, old man." "I know what I'm buying," the old man replied, his voice low. "And I know what I can offer her." Amina looked up, her eyes widening as the old man stepped forward and untied her chains. She didn't know what to make of this stranger. He didn't look like the others who had taken part in these cruel exchanges. He was older, frail even. But there was something in the way he moved, there was something in his eyes that gave her hope. The old man gently placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture so kind that it made Amina flinch. She had forgotten what it felt like to be touched with kindness. She had been bruised, beaten, and discarded like an object for so long that any kindness felt like an attack. "Come with me," the old man said, his voice as steady as the wind against the walls of an old house. "I'll take care of you." She didn't know what to expect, but she followed him. They walked through the crowded streets, the clatter of hooves and the chatter of passersby filling the air. The old man led her to his humble home on the outskirts of town. It was small, with a thatched roof and a few chickens running around, but it was a home, one that he had built with his own hands. And in that home, there was room for one more. He handed her a cup of water, watching as she drank greedily. He didn't speak much, but his actions spoke volumes. Days passed, and Amina found herself in a place she never thought possible, a place where she was safe. The old man taught her how to cook, how to plant seeds in the garden, and most importantly, how to believe in herself again. Each day, she was reminded of the strength within her, the resilience that had kept her alive through years of suffering, and in that quiet, peaceful home, she began to heal. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, casting a golden light across the land, Amina sat on the porch with the old man. The warm breeze kissed her face as she looked out at the world. For the first time in a long while, she felt free. The old man joined her, his back resting against the chair as he stared up at the sky. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. He smiled, though it was a smile touched with sadness. "I didn't do much, Amina. I just gave you the chance to live. The rest is all you." Amina's heart swelled. She had never known a life where she could just live, where she could breathe without fear, where she could take each step without looking over her shoulder. But it wasn't just that. It was the kindness, the quiet acts of love that the old man had shown her. He had given her dignity when the world had stripped it away. He had given her hope when she had none. The next day, a knock came at the door. It was a man in a fine suit. Standing tall and proud, he was the town's mayor, and he had heard of the old man's generosity. Word had spread of the girl he had saved, and people were talking. "I hear you've taken in a slave," the mayor said, his voice sharp, "and you think you can just go around breaking the rules." The old man didn't flinch. He simply nodded. "I've broken no rules. I've only done what was right." The mayor scoffed. "You think you can just walk into this town and change things? The world doesn't work that way. People like her, people like you, they don't belong in a place like this." Amina stood behind the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt that familiar feeling, the weight of her past, the shame that had been instilled in her, but it wasn't as heavy anymore. The old man had taught her to stand tall, to speak her truth, to never let anyone define who she was. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "I belong here. I've always belonged here." The mayor looked at her, his eyes narrowing. But in that moment, Amina didn't look away. She didn't shrink. "I don't need your permission," she said, her voice steady now. "I'm free, and that's something no one can take away from me." The mayor hesitated for a moment, and then turned and walked away. The old man smiled at Amina. He had known that she would find her voice. He had always known. As the days passed, the old man and Amina worked together, side by side, building a future, one based on kindness, love, and mutual respect. People began to notice the change in Amina. She wasn't the broken, terrified girl who had been sold for $5. She was a force in her own right, a woman who had reclaimed her life and her dignity, and with the old man's help, she would go on to help others who were still trapped in the same darkness she had once known. One day, the old man sat on the porch, his weathered face illuminated by the warm, golden light of the setting sun. He looked at Amina, now standing tall beside him, her heart full of hope. "Never forget," he said softly. "The power of kindness is not just in what we give, but in what we help others become." Amina nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. She understood now. Kindness had transformed her, given her a chance at life. And in turn, she would pass that kindness on, changing the world one act at a time.